Well, hello, this is Adam. Welcome back to Rare Classic Cars. Today we're going to talk about what I think are the most perfect automobiles, or the best automobiles ever produced, and that's the 1965 full-size Pontiacs. In fact, Motor Trend named the entire 1965 Pontiac lineup as their car of the year. But the 65 Bonneville that you see behind me, I think, is the definition of perfection when it comes to automobiles. Just does everything exceedingly well, looks great, drives great, rides great, runs great. It doesn't get much better than this. I don't think it's been topped ever before or since, so stay tuned. We're going to talk about it in more detail now. All right, and here we go with the 1965 Bonneville that you see in front of you. I think this is one of the most beautiful vehicles that was ever produced, and it's just the perfect car in so many ways. I'm going to tell you why I think that. Now, this is a four-door hardtop. Some would say it's got too many doors. I love the four-door hardtops. I think they're a great body style. I think they look great. And I will say the two-door fastback of this Bonneville is also handsome, but look at that side profile. Just doesn't get much better than that from a design standpoint. And every little detail in this car is just so beautiful. I love this bone line here and the overall surfacing with the fender peak, this feature line here that has this beautiful fillet to it. And look at the reflection that it kind of casts as you move up and down. This car was sculpted by true artists, which is what General Motors hired during the time. They only hired fine artists as clay sculptors. That was not true at Ford, for example, and it really reflected in some of the designs they have. Now, this was not the first stacked headlamp Pontiac. I love the stacked headlamp Pontiacs, but that was the 1963 Grand Prix. And then the stacked headlights would proliferate across the lineup. I do think this is the best execution of them for 65 with these beautiful, huge nacelles, the regular lamp sitting proud of the bright light, which is down here, giving this sense of motion. And everything on the front end of this car gives a sense of motion, like it's leaning forward. Even that is not a straight up and down surface. Notice that kind of Pontiac arrowhead right there. It's rotated forward a little bit. So the car looks like it's kind of leaping out at you. Of course, the beautiful wind split molding, those are long since gone for pedestrian safety reasons. But they sure do look cool. And this car is a true Coke bottle car with Coke bottle styling. And what does that mean? Notice how the body flares outboard as it gets toward the rear wheel, and it also flares up and also out on the lower portion too. Some designers differ on how they define Coke bottle styling. This is unquestionably a Coke bottle car. It's a bit of a fad. It would continue on into the 70s on some Fords, in particular the Torinos and Montegos. But it was in full, well, the height of Coke bottle was about this time. Studebaker Avanti would have been one of the early cars that had it, as well as the 63 through 5 Riviera. And out back, you have a bit of the so-called W-shaped rear end. This, if you look from the top, it looks more like an M if you're standing here, but if you were at the front of the car, it's this out, or kind of out here, and then a little peak in the middle. Just a gorgeous design. The Bonneville, of course, would get 3 tail lamps and this beautiful trim panel with the mid-century modern block lettering spelling out Bonneville, emphasizing the horizontal nature of the rear end of this car, because what else would you do on a huge car but emphasize how wide it is? So you can notice that whole theme is designed to make this car look wider. And the bumper, the way that it is constructed and being rather large and coming up the body a significant portion of the way, and then you have this, the taillights and this trim panel, makes the overall vertical dimension here look reduced. So it kind of looks like it's slimming as it comes to the rear of the car. Very athletic look to the rear end of this vehicle. This car is loaded. One of the options is backup lamps, by the way. Loaded with everything except power windows. The window sticker on this car was $5,100, which is the equivalent of about $40,000 today. The base price on the Bonneville, I believe, was in the high 3,000s. So the person who ordered this ordered a ton of stuff, including the first year automatic climate control. Pontiac introduced that for 1965. You can see it there. It says automatic temperature control. And you got this little blister in the dash top pad. That was the sensor for the automatic climate control. Has tilt wheel, as you can see there. Power seats. This is a 8,000 original mile car that has not been rolled over. There's a sticker from an oil change place back in 1981 when it had 6,600 miles on it. Obviously has the floor mats. Does have the optional full foam cushion in the front, so you get a little extra padding. Reading lights in the headliner there. They have a little switch that turns on a light, an auxiliary lamp. Windshield washer. Reverberating radio with this control right here. You can have it off and it just plays out of the front speaker. You can have it just play out of the rear speaker or the reverberating setting. Rear defogger, the blower style rear defogger. An AM radio. I'll turn this on. Unfortunately, there are not many AM music stations, but you can hear the on a Spanish station, but you can hear the reverberation there. Beautiful clock. It does have the passenger mirror, the day-night mirror here. So lots of options on this car, and probably some of the more special ones are underhood, which we'll get to. This is a 421 powered car, 421 4-barrel. Standard in this car was a 389 4-barrel that made 325 horsepower when you got it with an automatic transmission. Of course, automatic transmission was optional. This car also has the firm ride and handling package, which was all of $16. I wouldn't call it firm. I guess it's firmer. It does ride beautifully and handles beautifully. This, I would say, should have been the standard suspension package. It's not at all offensive. And it does have the Positraction rear end as well. So lots of options on this car, but the owner just didn't want power windows. I guess they were thought to be too much trouble during that time frame. But we talked a little bit about the exterior, and I love in particular this area of the car where the top of the door kind of goes upward and then has this beautiful arc all the way down the long quarter panel. And the C-pillar just has the perfect rake to it. And of course you have this backlight that is curved. It is not perfectly straight. And the windshield is similar. Now this car I did get from Great Falls, Montana. It was owned by a little old lady. She owned the local tavern and walked to work because it was like 3 blocks away, hence the mileage on this car. And she kept it all the way up until when I bought it. Let's say a good deal of the paint is original. The deck lid here, the roof, this is all original paint. The C-pillar, the roof, the hood. This side, which was obviously the side she couldn't see that well, she was starting to drive by sound and had a few dings in it, so I had those all fixed. The car just deserved to look brand new. She didn't order the 8 lugs. Went with the standard wheel covers there. Those are 14-inch wheels on this car. But again, just beautiful. Love the mid-century modern block lettering. Does have the optional outside rear view mirror that's got a remote control associated with it too. Unfortunately, this piece of wood has been lost to time, but I'll make something up there to make that look better. It was just glued and kind of came off at some point in the car's life. This is all real walnut wood, by the way. This is real walnut. Pontiac was using real walnut through this period until the late 60s when they switched back to the horrible, we'll call it ersatz wood. And look at this lucite wheel. It's perfect. No cracks. It just glistens in the sunlight when the sun is on it. A wonderful piece of jewelry. Everything on this interior is just like jewelry. Even does have the deluxe seat belts, which were optional. And let me show you the buckle here. I mean, look at that. You just don't get the seat belt as a piece of jewelry. Everything is so well done. in this car. It almost is sad getting back into a new car. Even that 71 Granville there, which was the top line Pontiac, it just can't hold a candle to this car. If I were trading in this car in that 71, I would have been pissed. I would have kept my 65. The 71 drives great, but the interior is just nothing like this car. Look at that beautiful Coke bottle styling, and I love the Bonneville had this lower trim on the rockers. I don't know what you'd call that. It's got these striped lines to it. It's a little funky, but it looks good, and of course the fender skirts. Now, as I mentioned, this car has something special under hood, and that is the 421 4-barrel V8, which was $130 extra. Now, why the owner of this car wanted a 421, I don't know, but she got it, and there you have it. And you can tell it's a 421 by the chrome air cleaner and the chrome valve covers. That is stock. The 389 would just have the valve covers painted, the Pontiac bluish, greenish color, and the top of the air cleaner would have been black. You can tell your Pontiac engine in a principal way. All of the Pontiac V8s that displace 326 to 455 cubic inches are physically the same size. Pontiac 265 and 301s have shorter deck heights, so you can kind of visually tell those. But here's the best way to tell. You look right there, there's a 2-letter code. This is YH. That decodes to a 421 4-barrel V8. So right beneath the head on the passenger side cylinder bank, that's how you can decode your Pontiac V8. We're getting to the last years of the single chamber master cylinder. Probably should convert this at some point to dual chamber, but it does work. It does have drum brakes up front, works fine, no issues, and the emergency brake works. So if I lose brake pressure, at least I have something to keep me safe. Now, there were a multitude of engines you could get. As I mentioned, the standard 389 made 325 horsepower when it was equipped with an automatic. There was a lower cost 3.2-barrel 389 that I believe made 338 horsepower. Then there was this 421 4-barrel, which made 338 horsepower as well. Then there were two 421 3.2 barrels. There was a lower output and then a higher output. The top making, I believe, 376 horsepower. So this is one up from the 389, and it's just a wonderful engine. About 10% of all 65 full-size Pontiacs came with a 421 engine, so it's a very, very rare option to have one. The 389 in this car is great. The 389 is a wonderful engine. I would not have complained. I would say probably the best standard engine ever offered in a Pontiac, certainly, maybe in a car ever. If you drove a 389 on the dealer lot, I don't think that you would say, gosh, I need more power. This 421 is damn fast, despite the fact that this is a huge car. Of course, you have the GM A6 style air conditioning compressor with this whole Harrison setup up here. Harrison was General Motors division that did all of its HVAC way back in the day. This car does have power steering and power brakes. Those were both options as well. Everything was optional back in this day and age, including windshield washers. You had to pay extra for windshield washers, although you do get the butterfly wipers. That was a Pontiac exclusive for 65 in the US. You would not get that on Canadian Pontiacs. They had the standard Chevrolet style wiper. So let's fire it up. Look at that Pontiac power. Just quiet. This car does have its original single exhaust on it. The exhaust system is completely original, tucked up way under there. But man, is it fast. You know, not fast by modern standards, but certainly fast for the era. I would say, you know, magazine tested this car with the 421, suggested it would go 0 to 60 in about 7.8 seconds, and I think that's about right. That's fast for this car. It is no slouch on power. But why is this car the perfect car? I mean, you saw from a styling perspective, it's just gorgeous inside and out. There's nothing to find fault with from a styling perspective. Just beautiful. The materials are beautiful. The shapes are beautiful. Everything is just stellar. But beyond that, the engine, as you saw, is just so smooth. Such a perfect engine. Even the standard 389 was perfect. And the ride on these is just fabulous. Pontiac did do a better job, I think, than the other General Motors divisions, which did great jobs with their ride. Even that 71 Granville in the garage, not generally a fan of the 71-6 full-size GM generation, but that car rides great. Rides better than the other GM divisions. When you put it all together, how could you be upset if you went to the dealership and bought this car? I mean, just look at that dash. I can't imagine somebody test driving this car at the dealership and not coming home with one. I mean, what would they say? No, I'm sorry, it's too smooth, it's too quiet, rides too well, I don't want it. And a great view out the hood here. It does have a Carter AFB 4-barrel carburetor, one of my favorite 4 barrels. Easy to service. So if you're looking for the perfect car, I would say the 65s I think are the best. The 66s are also great. The 67s are great too, but that's really peak Pontiac. 65 is the first year where you don't have to worry about the rotohydromatic transmission that you could have had behind the engine in one of your short wheelbase 61 to 3 Pontiacs. And that's just a terrible transmission. All the Pontiacs at this point had all the full-size Pontiacs had the turbohydromatic. So there you have it, the perfect Pontiac. Thanks again for watching. Thought I'd show one other thing here. This car has the optional pull-out utility light, which you can pull out, and then see it's got a cord there and it unwinds. You can walk around the car with it, and then you just rotate it to wind it back up and put it back in. Kind of a handy dandy device for Pontiac, and huge trunk in here. Obviously have a car cover, but 20 plus cubic feet of trunk. Don't make them like they used to. Thanks again for watching.